Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, Fire Force, Season 3, Part 2.
Yep, Fire Force, Season 3, Episode 22. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. It's Age. We're back for more Anime Night in the dojo. And well, last time, Arthur slew a dragon, got cut in half himself, cut the planet in half, defied breathing in space because he stood on his own subtitles. It's getting weird. So that's where we're at. I assume that we're going to be dealing with the pillars now because everybody outside Idola is dealt with, I believe, outside of Fairy. So I don't know if they're even going to be able to do anything to that guy. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's implied that he's on the same level as Dragon.
Yeah. So.
And Dragon was an Endeavor.
Yep. So we'll just see what happens. You know, there's in this first frame, if you guys are on the first frame of the episode, like we are, waiting just for time reaction, you can see where Arthur cuts the planet in half and it's all plasma. Kind of like the Great Wall of Plasma, if you will. But yeah, we'll just have to see how the world reacts to this. I know we have Doppelganger still to go. The thumbnail of this episode was Bully Guy. I can never remember that guy's name, but his doppelganger, Benimaru's doppelganger, is out there. Burns, obviously, and then Joker's. So we got a lot to get through in 4 episodes. But
yeah,
like I mentioned before, they got through 250 from 215 or whatever it was without skipping pretty much anything. So we'll give you guys the update right before the last episode. So that being said, let's just push some buttons and get going here so people on Patreon will see on the other side of the edit for the time reaction. Go on YouTube, see on the other side for the discussion and review. All links to all the various places that we are down in the description and YouTube and wherever you might be watching. So click buttons, watch wherever you want. If you want to check out something else, it's all there. So there goes something. All right, well, there you guys have it. We had several non-fights in this one. And a kind of fight with Chrono and his doppelganger. But, well, if my history of watching anything like this has taught me anything, it's the more calm, cool, and collected version of whatever or person that's going to win the fight. Because, well, being a raging berserker rarely pays off for you unless you have a massive power advantage. The case of this situation, they're the same. So, yeah, or arguably the same. We had the whole Benimaru thing, which, well, he's stronger than people actually believe him to be. So, you know, that was a problem for his doppelganger.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out. A big factor into this is the fact that we have all these really strong characters in their doppelgangers, but where the doppelgangers have been a major problem with a lot of the previous characters is because the doppelgangers are as strong as people perceive them to be. Most of these upper tier characters that we have here, most people have no idea how strong they actually are. So their idea of how strong they are actually isn't as strong as they really are.
Right.
People can't even comprehend how strong they are comparatively.
Yep. So at a certain point, you kind of look at it and go, if you're not a good gauge of power, and the majority of people are not a good gauge of power, you know, if they're just ballparking strength, then you kind of end up with situations like this where it's, yeah, you haven't seen even like 50% of what I can actually do. So that's kind of whatever. You know what I mean? But,
yeah, it's one of those things where it's just the doppelganger are as strong as people imagine the person being. But if the people can't imagine how strong the person is, they can't accurately make a doppelganger that is the same strength as them.
Right. So either way, there are a lot of cool visuals in this fight with the smoke and stuff like that. He finished him with, you know, these like this Hydra-esque thing that was pretty cool, and then he left the death symbol on the ground. That was pretty neat. I enjoyed that.
It's Ash.
Oh yeah, his Ash, right? It's Ash. But
That's his whole thing. Is he's a second gen, so he's a manipulator, and he manipulates Ash as his primary thing.
right. So yeah, that was definitely a thing. The one part about this too during the episode was just the fact that his boss was just hanging out in the background, just like being his boss. Like this is like the equivalent of like, you know, your boss looming over you in your cubicle and telling you to finish that Excel spreadsheet or whatever. And in this case, his boss is just looming over him as a life and death potential battle is going on. Just doesn't seem to care that he could potentially be collateral damage.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that a number of times from his boss. It's just like he doesn't care because he knows Kurano will protect him, because if he gets hurt, then Kurano's the one who will get shit for it.
Right. So, and at the end of the day, being the kind of guy this he is, if Doppel had won, he probably would have just hired him.
Yeah, and once again, of all the people, this guy's like one of the main guys who actually really knows Kurano and how strong he is and what his personality's like and stuff like that. And like I mentioned in the episode, Kurano's probably one of the best at gauging other people's power we've seen in the whole show. So if he's not concerned with the doppelganger, then the boss shouldn't be.
Right. Like, for example, the last time he gauged power was against the Raffles. Yeah, Raffles. The Raffles thing.
Yeah.
He was just like, I don't want to fight this thing. This is stupid. This thing's way too strong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in this case, he just kind of looked at him and was like, yeah, you're weak. So that was definitely a thing. But either way, we kind of sped run through some fights here. We didn't really get to see what happened with Joker, but the whole payoff with this whole Joker thing was Burns was just like, hey, you're trying to take my body? The hell you are. I'm taking your body.
Yeah, no, with the whole thing, we know the whole thing is like the doppelgangers are compelled to kill the original and take their place. But yeah, it stands to reason that, you know, the doppelganger could lose the fight during the merge.
Right. So Burns kind of just went full Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender and, you know, won the bending of his will off, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, he won the friggin' battle of the mind.
Yep.
Over which personality was dominant in the body.
Yep. So that's definitely kind of an interesting thing for that. We're probably not going to really see it for any other doppelganger. Obviously, the only other thing that is kind of on the table for something like this is Iris and Amaterasu. So
yeah, Iris and Amaterasu could potentially merge back into one being, but in general, like this whole situation the doppelganger needs to take over the body.
Yep.
Like the body needs to merge.
Yep.
And then there has to be a fight for control, which there aren't really any doppelgangers right now who are going to be merging with their originals, besides potentially Amaterasu and Iris.
Yep. So Burns suffers mortal wound, wins Battle of the Mind, gets shiny new body. Profit. And apparently, you know, fools all the other doppelgangers into thinking that he was the doppelganger. Because why wouldn't he be? You know what I mean? And
Well, yeah, that's part of the problem with the whole doppelganger situation is they act just like the original person, or like people's perception of the original person. So the original wouldn't have that hard of a time actually just pretending to be a doppelganger.
right. So either way, that was pretty cool. We got to see a bouncing severed head. That was kind of gross, but you know, that is what it is. But yeah, there was definitely a lot going on in this one. Like you know, the consolidation of power and stuff like this. You kind of see like you know, we talked about this was like Bleach is a decent example of like, you know, when Ichigo first awakens to his Soul Reaper powers, and you know his sword is gigantic, right? Because he can't consolidate his power. In the case of this Benimaru fight, he was just like, I'm gonna blow up the planet. Okay, yeah, that would probably kill Benimaru, but you don't have to blow up the planet to win this fight. You know what I mean? And in the case of what actual Benny did was he just consolidated his power into one precise strike and ended this guy, which, again, this was another imbalance of power. While the doppelganger was obviously very powerful, as per the show of power of, you know, him completely surrounding the earth in that flame, people still can't gauge how strong Benimaru actually is. So
Yeah.
he's stronger than the perception. So we already went over that.
Once again, you guys see me as this weak.
Yeah, that's why you got all pissed off. It's like, you guys think I'm this weak? This is some crap.
You think I'm only planetary level?
I know. This is insane. I can't believe you've done this. So, got some comedy in there. That is what it is. I will be interested to see how this whole episode, I talked about it a little bit at the end of the reaction there too on Patreon. I will be interested to see how this whole, did this all happen like in the source material, like back to back like this in this episode? Was it more like spaced out in different places, that kind of thing?
Yeah, like I was saying towards the end of the reaction, like I could see some of these fights potentially having taken place at different points in this story. But I imagine the fights themselves were largely untouched, that most of them were just kind of one-sided.
Right. So,
The only ones that I potentially see that we probably could have saw more of in the source material is maybe a bit more on the Kurono fight. And actually saw some of the Joker fight, because we didn't see any of it in this one.
so these fights here, this sequence, should I say, because they weren't, outside the Chrono fight, they weren't really fights. They were just, you know, RKOs. There were probably a lot of panels for this that took up some, like, a reasonable amount of the chapters. Not a ton of them, obviously, maybe like 2 or 3 chapters for these kind of sequences total. But that probably is how they were able to condense that for the chapter count and stuff like that too. So we'll talk about that when we get to the last episode. So got a couple more sessions before we get to that. So, but either way, we had Chrono totally catch him with the, you know, the face, the face, palm face thing. That was
He literally just catches him by the head.
Yeah, just catches him by the head and is like, so what happened? It's like, it's kind of an interesting question of like, why did they let him go? You know, nobody else got released, just him. So,
Well, it's probably a thing of like once Shinra and Show got out, they probably stopped bothering trying to force people to stay in. So like the only people who are still in were people who either didn't want to leave or didn't care to leave. Like Iris didn't want to leave because she was still trying to resolve the whole thing with Amaterasu. And then the other 3 are on Hameya. It's Hameya and freaking Sumire and Inka, who are all on the same side.
right. So either way, gotta love that sequence. That sequence, yes, that is what it is. We don't want to get YouTubed here. Even if there is not actual nudity there, it was just kind of like a blank, you know, Ken doll canvas. But still, you never know with YouTube. You know what I mean? But the other thing to talk about, and we talked about it during the episode as well, was, you know, yes, Fairy is now stronger. Gravity is a part of space-time. Absolutely. He can control time now. Congratulations. You're now the water droplet against a raging inferno that is Show. What good is it going to do you?
Yeah, there are 3 main energy sources that factor into time: speed, heat, and gravity. And we now have all 3 of them, because Show's whole thing is sapping heat to freeze time. Shinra is going so fast that he can reverse time, and then Fairy here is using gravity to basically achieve the same thing Show does, which is he uses gravity to slow time to the point where it's basically stopped, and therefore can act in Show's frozen time.
Right. So we had to have the Madara versus Aizen discussion again. We're gonna rag on Death Battle for that one till they potentially do something about it, because that one was dumb. It was like, oh yeah, Madara can damage souls. Okay, can a drop of water, you know, I mentioned at the end of the reaction, is a drop of water enough to take out a, you know, 100-acre fire? No, just because it's water that usually combats fire, that doesn't mean anything. Congratulations, you're on the playing field of what you need to win the fight. that doesn't mean you have enough to win the fight.
Once again, the bare minimum to be able to fight any of the major characters in the Bleachverse is the ability to damage souls. Because guess what? They have no physical form to damage.
Yeah. If you can't do a substantial amount of damage to a soul, then it's a non-starter. And with Madara, yeah, he could, but nothing that would compare to a captain in Bleach, and especially Aizen. So
yeah, that Aizen is his own fucking monster, and the fact that like no being in Soul Society knows of a way to actually kill him. That's why he was sentenced to like the 20-some thousand years in Mugen.
Right. Because
even with the big like executioner frickin' Zanpakuto that's capable of erasing souls, they couldn't kill him.
Yep. So either way, that we always kind of bring stuff up like that when it's a situation like this. Like, congratulations, you're on the playing field with Sho. He didn't matter. You know what I mean? He just kind of ended him.
Yeah. You've gotten strong enough to also manipulate time, aka you've achieved the bare minimum to be able to even fight him.
Yep. Still slower than him at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Still weaker across the board. That is what it is. But he did have the capability of casting his final spell, which was dropping the moon, Majora's Mask style, which, we can make that comparison because this moon also has a face, just like the Majora's Mask moon. But it was kind of interesting to see, like, all the other, like, second gens trying to do something about stopping the moon because it was technically something they could do something about. You know what I mean? Even with, like, Maki trying to do something about it, but it's just like, yeah, it's the moon, though.
Yeah, once again, their whole thing is second gens manipulate thermal energy, and kinetic force is thermal energy. So they, in theory, could manipulate the movement of something.
Right.
It's just kind of out of most of their ballparks. None of them really like specialize in kinetic force. Like the only people who focus on kinetic energy are Fairy and Charon.
Yeah. And they're both kind of toast.
They're both dead.
Yeah. So luckily we have the hero show up. He didn't say something like, good thing it's moon kicking man or something. You know what I mean?
And he didn't give himself a man title as of yet.
Yeah, he didn't give himself a man title for that one. Kind of a bummer, actually. But,
But yeah, no, he's one of the strongest characters we have right now in the story. So him managing to stop the moon's descent and allow it to resettle into orbit, even if the orbit is closer now, is the thing.
Which probably explains why it's so big in Soul Eater and stuff like that, unless he pushes it away more later or something. That's probably going to be its resting point. But either way, Gateway to Adola, all that stuff. We had the onlookers, we had the, images of despair from like what would be our world, that kind of thing from, previous Cataclysm. Or before the previous Cataclysm, should I say. And then we had the stuff in Adola, and we get the Helmea face reveal, but not really. Until next time. So.
Yeah.
That's really about it. I mean, it was a solid episode across the board. I will be interested to see how it compares to the source material when we get to that. Said before we start the last episode, I'll read up until whatever the point is, like right before the last episode, and then we'll be able to talk about it and compare it. But once again, just up until the middle of the season, it was pretty much the same. So I will be interested to see if any.
Once again, this is still like the biggest. Still like the biggest question of like change shenanigans is the whole thing of Arthur saving you.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing was, like I said, in the source material, Dragon shows up in the fight outside of Amaterasu, and Arthur's there, and he doesn't go in with Vulcan and the rest of them. And Yeah, so where I left off in the source material, Giovanni's like trying to open the door with the key. You know what I mean? It was literally shot for shot, frame for frame, except Arthur wasn't in there. He was outside, so that's the major thing that we're going to have to discuss, but everything else was the same. So, but either way, again, solid episode. If Shinra doesn't give himself another man title, I'll be kind of disappointed. Because, you know, I know it's super serious now, but come on, you kind of got to do your catchphrase, man.
Yeah, we need to get some sort of new title for Shinra. We need to see what the hell's going on with Haumea now that she's, you know, in Adola. She seems to have regained her sanity. And the big thing is also just what happens to Iris and Amaterasu.
Right.
Because, like, it confirmed the whole thing of Iris being Amaterasu's doppelganger. But they're still, like, right in the middle of their confrontation when Haumea shows up, and then we just never get a resolution to it.
Yep. So, a couple more questions that need to be answered. Does Arthur just float around in space for the rest of the time? Did he land on the moon, maybe, when it got closer? I don't know. We'll just have to see. We kind of saw his Darth Mauled body just kind of floating out there, and then the moon kind of like appeared behind him. So just have to see. It will be interesting to see what they do with Arthur and the whole, especially with the whole Excalibur thing. You know what I mean? Lord Death is still going to be a thing. So 3 episodes, a lot of stuff to do. I think it'll be okay. So, you got anything else, Age?
Yeah, we just have to get through all the stuff that we mentioned, and then, yeah, at some point or another, Lord Death needs to show up, and we have to have some form of confrontation with him.
Right. Speaking of Lord Death, for anybody who didn't see it and is a fan of Soul Eater, the Soul Eater Twitter account posted for the first time in over a year, and it was a picture of the moon, or a drawing of the moon, that just said next. So we're probably getting Soul Eater remake. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's not an actual confirmation, but it's definitely implying that they're going to try to.
Yeah, that's like, we want to do this, you know, so that will be cool. Either way, that's all we got for this week. So, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, beyond however you're watching, as always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us here in the dojo for more Anime Night in the Dojo. And this was Fire Force Season 3, Episode 22. So, have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you. Have a good one. See you next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.